2-0 top 7.
All right, you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Ready.
Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the pod following the spring game. I am Steve, joined by Jay, Connor, and Lucas, but let's introduce ourselves. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
Jay.
I want to do a shout out to our listeners. I really appreciated seeing so many listeners today at the spring game. We saw Christian, we saw Joff, and we saw the good listener Matt. Matt, I wish I could have had a longer conversation with you, but we introduced ourselves to Matt. He was up in our section. So that was good.
We did yell our names at him, though.
We did yell our names, so he knew exactly who we were.
Just wanted him to know.
I do appreciate his listenership, and I appreciate all the feedback in all seriousness. I'll just say this. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say it, guys. I know it's controversial, and I don't know if all of you guys are going to agree with this, but I think it's clear we saw the best Sooner quarterback on the field today. Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
And then there's some room for doubt who number 2 was. No, there's not, because Baker Mayfield was out there. And then Jason White was out there. And in spirit, Sam Bradford was out there, but he actually wasn't out
He was
there.
at the dinner he was at the statue building last night.
Which
but he
is
wasn't-
strange. He
yeah.
He
wasn't
was
there
just too
today.
busy today.
He's probably golfing.
But in that group
Not in this
of
weather.
that group of
Yeah.
former players that joined Brent at the start, there's probably a few quarterbacks in there that were pretty good. After that, we're going to talk about who the actual season-eligible quarterbacks are and who might be better and who might be best. But I wanted to start with the very straightforward scoring system. We had alluded to it or mentioned it in the previous pod, and it definitely lived up to billing.
Yeah, I did not keep book. As I said, I might.
didn't
I'm
score
glad.
like
I'm
a
glad I
baseball
did
game.
not keep score. It was
I had a
Well,
Google,
they didn't either.
a mess.
They didn't.
They didn't count everything that they, not even close to what they claimed they were going to
I was
count.
running a Google supercomputer remotely, and it couldn't keep up with what was going on. It was, well, one thing we know for sure, because we saw the official scoring that was, as we're rewatching the game on ESPN Plus, they did not accurately keep the score. They stopped at least counting sacks, among other things. So we don't know what the score actually would
Sacks,
have
batted balls.
been. Yeah.
The defense won by far.
The
Yeah.
defense won and was winning by far, but technically speaking, the defense won 84-82, and that included some rinky-dink things like having fans do stuff that could earn points and having coaches do stuff and like catch punts,
Catch a
and
punt machine.
a race among students and 2 students throwing a football into a hoop.
I bought a
Let's do a
water.
slot.
I bought a water, and I think I earned the red team 3 points. So
I
it was
wore
interesting.
white because I was rooting for the defense today.
Well, your defense won.
So I'm pretty happy.
So we got a lot to talk about, and most of it is, I guess, on the negative side, we could say. So who wants to start us off with their thoughts of what they saw in the spring game?
Lucas.
We know it's Lucas.
I saw a lot of bad offense and pretty decent defense for the most part. We gave up 4 touchdowns, I believe. 2 of them were completely missed coverages. The very first one was a good pump fake to Drake Stoops, and he threw to Farouk over the top because they bit on the fake, which that happens. I'm not going to lambaste the defense over that small play, but 2 blown coverages later. One was a swing pass to Sawchuk, which they ran 73 swing passes, I believe. I'll have to get the official transcripts, but I think there were 73 swing passes today.
In the first half?
No, it was overall, but it was either off tackle left, off tackle right, or a swing pass for the most part. If it wasn't a swing pass and it was something intermediate, Dylan Gabriel was overthrowing the receiver, or Jackson Arnold was getting sacked because he didn't really have much of an offensive line.
Which the overthrow we've seen.
Yeah, I was hoping that'd be corrected. There was at least 2 overthrows today. I don't know.
Best pass came from Jackson Arnold on the last drive.
Maybe the best 2 passes.
Yeah.
One of them dropped, and one of them a
in the
pass
end zone.
interference.
Yeah, and one of them.
Jaden Gibson dropped 2 passes
Well,
today
then 3,
that I
'cause-
recall.
So I don't know.
Because even the late throw to Gibson for the 2-point conversion play was a good.
It's a good play.
He didn't throw it immediately. He waited. He scrambled, bought time, and then found him in the back of the end zone. But
And really hit him, from what I could see,
Right in
right
the
in the
hands.
numbers.
And I think
right
I
in
was the
the
only
hands.
person in the entire stands rooting for the defense on that play.
Probably
Everybody's
so.
yelling, "Go for 2, win the game," and I'm like, "They're gonna go for 2, but come on, defense, stop them, stop them!" And everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. All 2,500 fans that
You
were
know,
left in
they
the
didn't have to
stadium.
go for 2, though. They could have just kicked it and won. Because
No,
time
'cause
time
they-
had expired.
No, there was still 5 minutes on the clock.
No, it was 0.
They were playing to 84.
No, there was 0. It had gone down to 0. The clock was 0. It was 2 minutes when they started that drive, and I was surprised it went to 0. I looked up and they had marked
thought
it.
there
at
was
No,
0.
there
6
was a minute.
minutes.
There was a minute 23, and then they made it go to 0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they
So
basically
had
said
they not
they
done
basically
that-
said last play.
Because that's what Connor said. I said this has to be the. All right, we were talking. This has to be the last player, and I said they have to go for 2 because I did look up and it was like a minute something. I remember that now.
Yeah.
And I said no, they could get a stop.
They can get a stop,
and
yeah.
they could and
And they
so,
get points
yeah.
for stopping. But they
Right.
also didn't count the delay of game because the clock ran all the way down to 0.
Right.
And they were like,
whatever that
"Oh no,
means."
we're
Yeah.
trying to decide if we should go for this." I'm like, "Yeah, they're obviously going to go for it."
How is it not obvious? Yeah.
And there was no timeouts. Bad clock management.
Bad
again.
clock management. Yeah.
Yeah, bad clock management. Big shock there. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of clock management, before we get going too much more in the general scheme of this game, one note that or point that I noted during the game with the new rules that have just come out by
As
the
of
NCAA as of yesterday, no longer will we get an automatic stoppage of the clock on a first down until they mark the ball. So I don't know if OU's going to be able to manage that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I really honestly worry about OU's ability in that regard to get the play in. And we noticed today because it was the end of the half and they were doing a hurry up and they actually did stop the clock after the first down, and we end up scoring a touchdown right before halftime. But I don't think we would have gotten
It wouldn't have
plays
counted.
in. And, no, actually, they might have been starting the clock because we called a timeout. But it appeared that they had stopped the clock incorrectly based on the new rule. And so, anyway, I have a serious slight concern, so it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but a serious concern with our offense and the sputtering that we did in clock management and last-minute drives. Will we be able to manage a clock where first downs don't stop the clock? And a lot of these coaches who depend on it, they built their whole offensive scheme on that. And obviously in the NFL, you've known for a long time that's not been a possibility. And so last-minute drives are designed very differently. So it'll be interesting to see how teams adapt to that, notably OU. Well, Jay, you pointed out something talking about the offense a second ago that I thought was a really good point. You were saying they don't flow well. Talk more about that.
Yeah, it just, we don't know how much they're showing or don't want to show or whatever it is for a spring game. But, and maybe this is one of the things that made Lincoln so good, but play call number 2 doesn't seem to be built off the first play call, and play call number 3 off the second, and so forth. So it just seems like we're just calling plays to call plays. There's no real setup. And maybe that's just being too harsh for a spring game, or maybe it's even just too difficult to tell it from this type of game when you're playing yourself. But I don't know. The offense was concerning today, mainly because, unlike what I had hoped for, you had the ones playing the twos for the most part. And
We still didn't show a lot.
we did not do very well. Now, you could maybe say, well, maybe our twos on defense are better than we had thought, or that's a good sign that we're adding depth to the defense. But still, your number one offense should absolutely move the football methodically at times against your number 2 defense.
Yeah, I think offensively, I mean, I don't know if it's just we didn't want to do a lot. From what I watched, it did not look like we worked on much of anything. Like,
Agreed.
from a strategy perspective,
Creativity-wise,
like it was so just
You mean like last season?
very much so, like truly. Like, I mean, it was very one-dimensional in what we were doing. And you can go back to the very first play. You're in a spring game, and I get there's competitiveness. You're in a spring game. You throw a swing pass, and the first play you run is a swing pass, fake play pass. Try to pass it over the top for whatever you're trying to do,
And got batted down.
and he got batted down.
Yeah.
Now it would have been a touchdown.
It would have been a touchdown had he
If he-
completed
if
the
he
pass.
completed the pass. If
And,
he
and
can
maybe
dump it up
we're
there.
all like clapping, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is your opportunity for Dylan Gabriel. I don't want Drake Stoops throwing touchdown passes in the spring game.
Well, that was an opportunity to maybe get some razzle dazzle at the start. I don't mind and kind of admire the effort,
Yep.
but it would have been the highlight of the day, which you can't make your highlight. To your point, I think that's not hopefully going to be the identity
definition
of, our
of what you
offense.
are, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's what makes me the most nervous is I want Dylan Gabriel to be a better product this year on the football field, and there's no indication that we have that right now, right? I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of work that's going to go in and going to be, produced by the time we get to that first game, but it's not even Dylan Gabriel, it's Jeff Lebby as well. So I mean, it's very concerning in my opinion to see the offense we put out there. I hope Sawchuk's the guy that we think he's going to be, and I think we can lean on that a little bit, and hopefully it comes down to a point where it's like, hey, Dylan Gabriel is the equivalent of a Stetson Bennett, where we're leaning on our defense to go win us more games than we are our offense. So I don't know.
That's probably going to be, not to that extent, but will be more of our identity as a football team going forward, is a defense that actually is built around winning championships and an offense that gets the job done. But I think from at least the standpoint of the offensive coaches and the mindset they've got, they want an offense that is premier. They don't want an offense that's just effective. And we right now have an offense that's struggling to be effective. I look back to last year to say that. I did have a lot of notes on quarterback and offense today, and none of it was very positive. But I also have some points to make that maybe push back against that a little bit and give us a little bit of reason to cut him some slack. I would say Dylan Gabriel is not great, and
It's just not elite.
we need an elite quarterback at OU. We deserve elite quarterback play, or at least people that are promising and pushing to be elite. We need more than above average. We need somebody in that greatness realm or pushing greatness, and I don't see it out of him right now, and obviously we didn't see it out of him last year. He did have some key plays. We just watching the replay, we see one of the touchdowns, the one right before half, and it's a bit of a busted play, really. Or
It's
pure
not a
busted
bit.
play
It's
on
100%.
defense.
Yeah.
The other two touchdowns, one of them was really just a well-executed play that I would say creates a bust, and we didn't realize it at first, but watching the replay, that changed our mind a little bit. The other one is a pure bust. A guy and it's sad
Just
to see.
tight end Smith.
Yeah, and
Yep.
and you
With
see
the
it
club on
first
his
team-
arm is so wide open that he can make that
first team
catch.
defense get completely busted on that. So,
Yep.
so that's frustrating. One other thing that we saw early on, Jay and I were watching, in that first attempt at a touchdown when they were deep in the north end zone, and Jay called it in the stands. He said it's going to be to Stogner, and sure enough, it was. But as we're watching it on here, it's clear that Stogner's open. He just throws the ball too late.
Wrong, yeah.
He waits, and Stogner has turned,
Missed his window.
and then he throws the ball. If he throws that ball before Stogner turns, it either is an incompletion or Stogner catches it for a touchdown. No other person is near that ball. But he waits, and it's actually a contested ball, which is frustrating, and it's something that really hampered us last year and plagued Gabriel throughout the season. He wouldn't throw guys open, and he continued to get guys into positions where they were going to be covered once the ball was released.
Yep.
Yeah, you can only be so good if you're waiting to throw the ball when your players are open.
Yeah.
Like that next step that
Yeah.
you need from your quarterback
Yeah.
is those anticipatory throws where you know his route.
Yeah.
Like you know that he's
Yeah,
running
you know where it's supposed to be.
a flag route on that play. So if the safety hasn't come over yet and the corner isn't dropping deep, that's your throw. Just do it.
Just throw the ball.
Just go ahead and throw it.
Yep. And the receiver knows to expect the balls in the air. He turns to see the ball, not turns to see you throw it. So let me push back a little bit about our pessimism about the team and about the offense and even about Dylan Gabriel some. I will say Jackson Arnold, I thought looked pretty good. You didn't think he looked as good, Lucas. I thought he looked pretty good at times. He definitely looked good running with the ones at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. For his first time in a Sooner jersey playing in front of a crowd in Memorial Stadium, I thought he got better as it went along. I didn't think he had any just ridiculous throws or any ridiculous decisions. He was under duress quite a few times, especially going against the number one defense.
Yeah, he didn't have any throws he shouldn't have made,
Right.
and he didn't have any underwhelming throws like from arm talent wise.
Right. Or
And when he did
yeah.
take off with his legs, who's to say if he would have gotten tackled on that play or not? He might have had a 60-yard touchdown run.
That's right.
as
and,
well.
and several others that he did well. You say that.
He would have been tackled twice on that play.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I
Well,
mean,
unlike a lot of the tackling, that would have been single tackles. And one thing I'll say, and that transitions into one of my points, we saw gang tackling throughout the game, which was really good to see. The defense was really swarming to the ball well. And I thought the defense looked good and very good at other times. So that's something that we have to take into account with the offense to say, well, the defense did look good. And didn't look just good that it was working out for them. They were making plays. They were in position. They were dominating positions, winning the line of scrimmage. They seemed to be very good. Now, again, if they were going up against the fourth grade team from McKinley over here, yeah, they look really good. So we have to worry a little bit about offensive line. But a few other points, the lack of the full running backs definitely hampers our offense. So one of our number one, if not number one, number two running back in Barnes is not playing today. Obviously, Salchuk is not playing every down. You're putting in second, third, fourth teamers, so that's going to hurt.
Quarterbacks can't run.
Quarterbacks can't run, and they know it. Your offense is plain vanilla, and that's either an excuse or it is a worry. It's a worry if we feel like they just can't handle the more complicated schemes. It's good if they're just trying to run plain vanilla. They don't need to show anything. They're just trying to work on fundamentals and basics. One other thing that's sort of a half help to it, and definitely a pretty big concern, is we clearly need help at least three positions: receiver, offensive line, and punter. And I put those in that order. I think that might be the order in which we need the most help. And I think we'll get some help in offensive line as they develop. There is potentially a transfer coming in on offensive line that could help.
And receiver.
So help might be on the way.
There's still two freshman receivers coming in too. Which,
Yeah, it's true.
Which is a position that you can get on the field as a youngster.
Right away as a freshman. Yeah, especially these guys. Definitely those guys. So there's help on the way at those positions. And now punter, I don't know, maybe it's okay. Maybe we won't need to punt so much, but I bet we are going to need to punt a few
I bet we
times.
punt a lot.
And that is, even if we punt a little, you're probably punting enough in the critical games.
A lot of 3 and
We're not
outs.
worried about
Gonna be
punting
ready to
against
punt.
Tulsa. We're worried about punting against Texas. So that didn't look good today at all. That looks pretty concerning. Anybody else thoughts on Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, or other things that they saw that stood out to them?
I thought Peyton Bowen does not look like he was in high school 3 months ago.
Yeah.
He, besides just the interception, the body control of the interception was phenomenal.
The body control was
But
impressive. at
he
best.
he was out there making tackles on one of those 73 swing passes.
Yeah.
I think he was the one that got beat on the Gavin Freeman touchdown at the very end of the game. The coverage was decent. It was just a really good throw on that one. So I don't really blame him, for that. But, I mean, he jumped out at me. I mean, I think a Bowen and Bowman safety tandem could be fantastic if we can get both those guys on the field for at least 2 more years, let's say. But I don't know if the Pearson kid will take the job, or I don't think. I mean,
I think
I don't,
Bowen.
I don't think Key Lawrence is. I don't think it's Key Lawrence's job.
No, I think Bowen's one of those kids that, he's gonna get plenty of playing time early, and you're just gonna see more and more and more playing time. And by game 7, 8,
He's the guy.
He's a full blown.
I mean, he was making tackles like over the middle and solo tackles against guys that have been playing here.
wrapping up.
So I was very impressed with him.
Pearson did good too, though. Pearson does. He made plenty of good tackles too.
And that's what you want. That's a good problem to have. Is
Yeah, competition.
You play this guy or
position
that
we've
guy,
been weak at.
that depth that we've talked about. So, I mean, I think going into this, we talked about the other day, just getting a good look at the defense, and I think we got that. I think a lot of our criticism is coming on the offensive side of the ball, which A, expected, B, is still a concern, in my opinion, both from a player and a coaching aspect. But from a defensive perspective, outside of a couple of busts, the ones played well. I think we are getting depth where we need it, both on the edge and in the secondary. So I don't know. There's a lot to be excited about in that unit, going forward. So we'll see. I think it's a weird spring game. Like we've talked about it. I was really, really bored. And I hope that's just because we're trying to work on stuff and it's more of a glorified public practice than anything else. But we'll see. We got 4 months till the season. Lot to come.
I've been to a lot of spring games, and we were talking the other night. I don't know if this was on the pod or not, but I think I've only missed maybe 6 in the last, 30 years.
Yep.
Maybe more. It's probably more. But it's not more than 10. And I remember being bored and underwhelmed quite a few times.
Yeah.
That's usually what it is. It's what
Exactly.
it looks like.
Right.
Sometimes it looks real razzle-dazzly and it looks really good. I'll say one thing that I've always tried to see, like, what do you want to see? We talked about this a little bit. Do you want to see the defense dominate? I remember back to many years of the offense dominating, and I can point to examples of it before we had championship runs and before we had some of the worst seasons in OU football history. So I don't know if there's anything that's in particular as a pattern and correlation you can point to. What you are looking for is solid play and good. Obviously, people know what they're doing, and I see hints of more of that than in the bad years, but not as much of that as I'd like to see and have seen in the real championship years.
Well, and I don't know how much it really indicates, but one thing, even watching it on TV right now, not a lot of scrambling on the defensive side of the ball. Not a lot of, I don't know what I'm doing. I need a call. I need to know, like, hey, tell me where I'm going or what I'm doing on this play type of thing. So I hope that's at least somewhat of an indication of, we're getting this system figured out and the scheme is what we want it to be and we have the right guys in the right place. Because that's where it's all going to start, and that's where it's going to end as well. So,
well, that's a point I think related to something Jay and I were talking about when you guys were downstairs. We were looking at the defensive lineup and the scheme, and I think they're not running a plain vanilla. They're not running what we ran at the very start of the season last year, where it's just the most basic possible scheme you can run. They were running things that looks like what Brent Venables wants to run mid-season.
yeah.
And we weren't even bringing much pressure, and they weren't blitzing.
Right, no, there was no blitzing.
And it was
they were
still
getting
getting
pressure.
to the quarterback
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And a bunch of unaccounted for sacks on the scoring, and they were still letting the play finish out and getting the yardage after the play instead of actually being sacks. And the defense
Still is making stops.
was still making stops, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of bright spots on defense, to be honest. Quite a few bright spots on defense. And I would say our concerns on offense are going to revolve around the quarterback position. There's some weaknesses other places, but if Dylan Gabriel has the same problems next year or this coming year as he's had prior in last season, we're going to struggle. We're going to have a lot of underwhelming performances, and that doesn't have to be an entire game, but it can be a critical quarter if you're going up against somebody that you got a close game against.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see, but hopefully the defense can get off the field and keep us in games in ways that it wasn't able to do last year. Obviously, I'm still pretty optimistic about our record, simply because our schedule lines up really good.
Yeah.
We'll obviously see what that actually looks like once the season comes here and all these other teams are as good or bad as they're actually going to be. But on paper, it looks like some real opportunity for sure. So who's ready for it to be fall?
Not me. This
Not
team
the
needs
not
a
the
ton
Sooners
of work.
team. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Emotionally, I'm ready. Never want to wish the summer away, but I love it when the fall begins. But no, I think we need a lot of off-season work. What do you guys think will happen in terms of transfer portal, both ins and outs? We talked about this the other day a little bit, but any changes now with having seen the spring game? Any ideas of how much activity we'll see there?
I don't know.
I'm curious, what y'all think? We'll go back to like individual player. What did you think about DJ Graham on offense?
Thought he looked good.
I thought he looked good too.
I think he should be a guy.
I think he should too.
I
I don't see why he can't be one of the three three or four best
in that
receivers.
position group. I think he should be a guy. I
Yeah.
mean, someone who can go up and be physical.
And
like
he just made the switch,
Right.
So he's going to have a whole summer being able to run routes,
Right.
and learn. I mean, because they go back home and they get their high school buddies to throw to him and stuff like that. I don't see why he can't get in the rotation of being, one of the four guys that gets used the most.
Well, I would hope if he runs good routes and catches footballs, he definitely
playing.
gets his spot and
Yeah.
can play. Because that's something that we have lacked off and on in the past year, really the past few years.
I think this is it right here.
Can you catch a football?
I mean,
Yeah.
do you see a guy? I mean, is Jaden Gibson going to get used if he's going to keep dropping the ball all the time?
That was disappointing. I'm sure he's disappointed too because he probably goes several practices and doesn't have that problem. But man, when it's time to do it,
When
he
the
is
lights are
not-
on, you got to catch the
And
football.
what's bad is it's not even one type. It's not even a ball over the shoulder, over the top. It's a ball to his chest sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's
the
just
two-point
it's
conversion
just
was.
it's just a quality of hands in general.
Yeah.
Like and that has to be concerning.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is a kid who we have touted as that's going to be our number one guy someday, and he continues to do that.
Well,
And
it
that's
almost has
worrisome.
to be a mental issue when it's hitting you in the hands. Ava was commenting that in intramurals, she actually got some of the OU gloves on the other day, and she said, I don't have any sympathy for them dropping balls anymore.
'Cause they just
she goes,
stink.
you can throw that ball at me, and I will catch it, which
Yeah.
it's like, it's just stick 'em on.
Yeah,
I said that 10 years ago, the first time I had ever put a pair
Same
on.
experience, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
it's like, how are these legal?
when you're catching,
Exactly.
when you're sitting there and a ball's hitting you right in the hands, in a picture-perfect situation, I know there's some pressure, but that's the point.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a mental thing with the guy, and maybe you're right, Jay. He doesn't have that problem in practice because it's not the same mental burden. But when you get out there and all the pressure's on, he's not performing. So that's a real concern.
So to your question, that's what made me think of it. Is that's a guy that people might have circled to think, he's making the switch from defense back to offense, and
Will
if he
he
isn't
really
going to get his
transfer?
chance, he could go somewhere else and probably move right into a starting position.
You have to think he would.
At probably 2/3 of the schools in this country.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a guy that I was wanting to see if he got any run, and he wasn't with the ones. I didn't notice him a whole lot really in the first half, but he started getting his spots in the second half. So, I mean, that's a guy that if he doesn't think he's going to get his shot on offense, then not like he's been blacklisted necessarily, but maybe he just doesn't think he's getting a fair shot at it because he came
And knows
from
he
the
can
defense.
play somewhere.
Then that's a guy that probably should go somewhere because he's going to get the opportunity somewhere else.
That's good.
And that's one player that made me think, transfer portal we could lose if
And
he
not
doesn't,
want
if
to
he doesn't
lose.
feel like he's going to and not want to lose if he doesn't feel like he's going to get a fair shake.
I think we lose a quarterback. I think one of those guys is gone.
Oh,
Almost
for
have
sure.
to.
So I mean, we'll see what happens there. I mean, I think Bevel probably says, "Look, this isn't it." And I mean, I don't know how you can look at Arnold today and think that you have any sort of shot of being the number 2.
Yeah, Arnold's clear too.
So yeah, and it's
I mean,
it is like you
If there
said,
was any
clear.
doubt before,
Yeah,
there's no
that's
doubt
it.
now.
So whether it be Bevel or Booty or both, I hope not both. I'd rather see Booty go and try to be something somewhere else. But I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see some of those fringe guys to see where they want to land because I do think there's going to be some movement. I can't pinpoint whom.
I
it'll
wouldn't be surprised if like a Reggie Grimes left because we've kind of out recruited his usefulness to me because we thought after that Nebraska game last year, he started off the season just dominating and getting in the backfield the first
Was
three
he
games.
out there today? Was he
Yeah,
out there?
he
at
was
all?
like with the threes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so,
then
I
he
mean,
just
and-
disappeared the rest of the season.
Yeah, non-existent.
Ethan Downs, I mean, Bothroyd's going to be starting over Downs.
Thomas,
I mean, you
Yeah,
got
or Mason
Bothroyd,
Thomas.
Thomas. You have
Adebawore,
PJ, who's probably better. You got Trace Ford, who's out there. I mean, that's a tough unit to compete.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked if Grimes leaves. Downs, he's an Oklahoma kid, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it'd be
the
shocking.
Weatherford kid.
It'd be shocking for him to bounce, but I don't know. That seems like a position that we really haven't had any depth in, and now we've brought in a bunch of guys, and it could be depth that would make other guys leave.
right.
So
I agree with that.
and what about I wouldn't. Can Key Lawrence leave again? I mean, he transferred in from Tennessee. Can he transfer in the portal and play right away somewhere else?
Right. Was Kobe McKenzie out there today?
Yeah.
Was he?
So
Didn't see a lot
Key
of him.
Lawrence wouldn't be shocking to me because Pearson's may get the start this season, but Peyton Bowen showed me today that I mean,
That's his job for the next 3 years.
yeah. If he's not playing by game 7 on a regular basis, he's playing next year for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Key Lawrence I think only has 1 year left anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe he just sees it that he'll just stick around and see if he can make that squad. But
I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Key can compete in that scheme of things.
So I don't think this. I'm sorry to interrupt. This,
No, go ahead.
but back to Bevel, and this is something we brought up. So I was looking up some clarification. You have to set out a year if you transfer a second
time.
So that pushes back against Bevel transferring
And Key Lawrence.
and
And
Key Lawrence and
And Booty.
But I mean, they may be fine setting out, but they would have to set out a year before they could be eligible.
Yeah.
And that may be fine for them depending on where they go, but it depends on what their aspirations are. I think Key is probably the biggest threat because he probably feels like he has the most chance to go to the next level.
I don't think he can sit out another year because if it's a penalty, it'd
Age.
be a penalty year, wouldn't it?
It's a redshirt year. I think
I
you
mean-
just set out. It doesn't matter. I didn't read that far into it, but I think I
mean,
don't
his
think you
clock
have
would have
to.
already started. So if he went to somewhere else, he wouldn't have that year.
You
to
wouldn't
sit
have a
out
year
because-
period. Yeah, that might be the case. Although you do have those guys in those. Of course, they have injuries. They have the
Key's
7 years.
Key's going to play enough. He's going to play
Yeah.
meaningful snaps.
I think so too. But
Yeah.
You got to remember too. You put a lot of these guys on your special teams units and stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but is that satisfying enough in the portal era? If you're just a guy that's going to be not given,
I mean, technically, he was with the ones today, Key Lawrence.
right.
So
Yeah, and that's pretty positive there. So
because the safety lineup was Key Lawrence and Billy Bowman with the ones, and the twos was Pearson and Bowen.
Bowen. But Bowen showed out today.
Bowen, I was not expecting to see a kid who looked that big.
Yeah,
I mean he looked developed beyond a high school senior, like Lucas said 3 months ago. That's
Yeah.
insane. That's insane to me. I
Yep.
mean,
Well, he should still be in high school.
he should still
Yeah.
he should be graduating next month.
I mean they played in the state semifinal in December, right?
Yep.
And it's April, and the dude's out there
how about that?
making a fantastic interception, and he's making one-on-one tackles.
He
on
was
the
on his
corner.
guy. He
Yeah.
turned. He located the ball and tracked the ball down.
Yep.
Which we, honestly, is
What's
just-
number 23's name again?
And he caught
Josiah
the
Wagner.
Josiah Wagner.
ball. He caught the ball. Let's just
Yeah, he
focus
caught it.
on
He
that.
made the play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How many disappointing drops have we suffered through over the past several years?
Yeah, that was a poorly underthrown ball right there.
Yeah, very underthrown ball by Bevel there. I joked that it was a 30-yard back shoulder route
Yeah.
fade.
I was surprised Smothers got as much run as he did with he's got his hand all bandaged up. So, I mean, he's essentially just running with his right arm, his left arm, or his left hand.
Yeah, his left hand is pretty.
It wasn't quite a club like the tight end was, but I mean, he's got his whole wrist has like a roll of toilet paper essentially all the way around it.
Yeah,
He needs to get a little bigger.
I would say though that we probably have a much more pessimistic outlook than what the coaches and team have. I bet they have a pretty positive day out of this. They came out of it, as far as we know, basically injury-free, maybe just a couple of dings. They probably saw some information that they wanted to see about
Team 129.
About Team 129 and some key players and key positions.
Well, when they break it down player by player, it gives them a better picture than what we get to look at. But
Absolutely.
Speak for yourself. When you watch from the end zone, you can
When you watch from
everything
the end zone,
individually.
you can see so many things.
Yeah.
You see the depth perception alone is
Yep.
just fantastic.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know.
How was the officiating today?
Hard to say. I don't really understand the picked up flags. We're looking at one of them where they picked up a flag. I don't know
I think Venables just
what's going on.
Venables just waves his arm, and that means pick up the flags.
I would imagine too. That's what it must have been. What was the hold? That was close to a hold. It would have been.
Yeah, they called a
questionable.
penalty there, and then
that
they picked
was
it up
slight.
because the white team was too far ahead, so they wanted to. I thought by the end of the third quarter, when it was 72-72, Venables may just say, "Hey, we're just gonna. All the fans have left except for you diehards like us. We're just going to stop the game now, and everybody gets a cookie." 72-72.
See, no, that's where I think the difference is. I
Everybody
think
wins the medal.
They're seeing something and they're getting something out of it. I think he would probably argue, if nothing else, they're getting the bang bang out of it, and that is something that they want to see. Is these guys put the effort and put the work in. So that was a good move. This is again in that the third quarter drive.
He should have scored.
Bevel hitting. Who was that?
DJ
DJ.
There's
Graham.
DJ. Yeah, DJ. A great
He looks
great
the-
move
he looks
after
the part,
catch.
too.
He does. He
On
looks like a wide
deep
receiver.
comeback out route.
Yeah.
And he makes just a really good.
It was kind of a
instinctive
wobbly
move.
throw.
was a
It
bad
was
throw.
yeah.
He just
It was a little
completely fakes the defense out by convincing him he's turning left when he then turns around right. So that was a really good move. Yeah, hopefully he gets a chance. I think he's a player who should get a chance to compete.
that's
He's
what he was
definitely
out
a
of
good
high
athlete.
school.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Any other last thoughts? Anything
We didn't talk
else?
about McCullough.
All right,
McCullough
well,
looks
let's
pretty
talk about
good.
him. He looked
McCullough
good.
looked good.
He looked real
Yeah.
good.
And just
He looked big.
just from the eye test, he looks like a type of defensive player that we
Put
haven't
into the
had
league.
around here for a
He
while.
looks like a guy that's going to go to the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be shocked if he is not playing over Justin Harrington day one. I mean, Harrington's running the ones today. McCullough with the twos.
I'll say I hope he doesn't because that means that Harrington's that good,
Developed.
and McCullough's.
Yeah.
You got to put him on the field somewhere. So that means you've got two really good players.
Well, that's a good problem, right? I mean, like, it's just
Where
like
do you
we
think
talked
they
about.
put him in?
I mean,
Strong safety?
he played defensive end for Indianapolis for
yeah, he was
Indiana.
a rush specialist guy, so he's learning the coverage aspect of his new role in the
Yeah.
Cheetah. But
I'd love to see a position against like a SMU or Tulsa where you've got Adebore on one side and you bring McCullough in on the other side. You've got those two guys as defensive ends just wreaking havoc.
we definitely have
That would be awesome to see.
We definitely have players
Good
to
speed rush.
to put together.
Oh, I forgot
quite
about
the
that
third
touchdown.
down.
5 touchdowns.
To put together quite the third down pass rush, because Mason Thomas is a very good pass rusher. You're gonna have Adebore. You're gonna have, like you said, McCullough coming off the edge.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we can
You
definitely.
could use
put
McCullough
something
like
together.
a striker type, or oboe position where, if it's a obvious passing down and you just want to get the quarterback to throw the ball quickly and maybe make a mistake, that he just does whatever he wants to with the lineman and gets around him.
And if he gets around a guy, he can run down any quarterback.
Yeah.
A difference between him and some of the defensive ends.
I mean, he's got the
obviously, we've seen.
wingspan, and PJ too. The wingspan is just ridiculous on those guys.
Yeah, PJ.
I want to see those guys get their hands up, knocking balls down when they do get their opportunity to play. Hopefully, second halves of the early games. Hopefully, it's not like we're in
Trash
dog
play.
fights against Tulsa and
Oh.
SMU.
Yeah, let's
That
hope
we're-
it's not that.
Yeah, that we're actually able to get some good quality time in there.
Hicks bounced a run to the outside
Yeah.
early in the game, and PJ just straight ran him down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just
They weren't finding the edge.
the kind of guy that you just can't.
The edge is
You
an
just
area
don't get
that we
enough
had
of those guys.
have weakness in the last year, and we showed much better holding position, keeping guys from getting outside on you. definitely good containment.
Yeah, my main takeaway for the game was the game wasn't very fun, but glad the defense looked more the part. Offense, I saw absolutely nothing whatsoever, and it's disappointing.
I'm 100% aligned to that exact statement. Defense, was glad to see what I saw in some positions. Offensively, I've got a lot of concern both from a personnel standpoint and a coaching standpoint.
Yep, I agree. Same. Defensively, it looks like we have
Some
more
dudes.
of the players that you've got to have to start winning championships. And offensively, outside of a couple pretty good throws from Arnold, everything else is very underwhelming.
Yeah, I'll agree with that and reiterate it in a way by saying it looks to me like the defense is half a season away from being where they want it to be. Now, I do think it'll get better in future years, but half a season away from being us excited about it and really proud of that side of the football. It looks to me right now like the offense is a clean one season away from being where we'd want it to be. Now that I may
Which
be
is pretty
proven,
much-
I hope I'm proven wrong
Which is
about
pretty
that.
much because Jackson Arnold's going to be the quarterback.
That really is a
Yeah.
big component of it, and a few other key positions and some people. Obviously, we're excited about a few positions like running back, but we're not just enamored with these guys. We expect good things out of them. We don't expect we'll be mentioning the names of Barnes or Sawchuk in the illustrious company of Mixon and Peterson, but it could happen that they get up to that level. We just want good, consistent contributors there in those positions. Same thing at receiver. I don't think we're expecting someone to push for the Blitnikoff, but we would like to see stronger receiver play and more consistent receiver play, and all of that looks to me to be, at this point, about a full season away, but maybe they'll surprise us and get things together at an accelerated clip. Well, we'll be back in a future episode, maybe in a couple of weeks, with some guests. We're trying to get some special guests on to give us some off-season commentary and some other topics, and we'll be back soon with some direct interviews with each of us so that you can get to know us a little better and understand why we're homers or why we're realists and all of that. But until next time, Boomer.
Sooner.